I never thought I'd be writing this, but here we are. My name is Tom, and I'm just an average guy who once thought he had a perfect life with his wife, Jennifer. We had been married for 7 years, and for the most part, things were smooth sailing. We met in college, fell in love, and took the usual route, dating, getting engaged, and finally tying the knot. When we moved into our cozy two-bedroom apartment in downtown Chicago, I thought we were on the same page. But as time went on, cracks started to show, and I'll admit I didn't see them at first. Jennifer had always been the more social one in our relationship. She loved to go out, make new friends, and live life to the fullest. I was more of a homebody. I was okay with that dynamic. It balanced us out. But recently, things began to shift. She started coming home later than usual, claiming she was at happy hours with friends or working late. I didn't think much of it at first, chalking it up to her busy social life. But it felt off, like she was slipping through my fingers and I could quite grasp what was happening. One day I noticed something strange when I went to grab a snack from the kitchen. There was a receipt for takeout from an Uber Eats order that I didn't recognize. The name on the receipt was Jason, the delivery guy. I brushed it off initially. After all, we ordered food often. But it was the second time that week I noticed a receipt with that same name. My gut instinct kicked in, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on. I started paying closer attention to Jennifer's behavior. She had been spending more time on her phone, and every time I tried to peek at the screen, she'd snap it shut, claiming she was just texting a friend. At the same time, she'd get defensive if I asked about her late nights. "You're just being paranoid, Tom," she'd say dismissively. The more she said that, the more I began to feel like a complete idiot for even doubting her. But that wasn't the end of it. One night I stayed late at work, working on a project that had me stressed out. When I got home, I expected Jennifer to be there, but the apartment was dark. I checked my phone and saw that it was after 10 p.m. In my gut, I felt something was wrong. My heart raced as I called her. No answer. I tried again and still nothing. As I paced the living room, my mind raced with thoughts. Was she really out with friends, or was there something else? I felt sick to my stomach as I considered the worst. What if she was cheating on me? That thought wouldn't leave me alone. Finally, I grabbed my keys and decided to take a drive. I drove past her favorite bar, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. There it was, the flickering neon sign. I parked and walked in, heart pounding. I scanned the room, and lo and behold, there she was, sitting at the bar, laughing and flirting with none other than Jason, our Uber Eats delivery guy. The scene burned into my mind. Her head thrown back in laughter, the way she leaned into him, and the casual touches. They were intimate. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My instincts were right, and the betrayal hit like a freight train. It was surreal watching the woman I loved betray me so openly. I stood there for a moment, frozen in disbelief. The air felt thick, and the noise of the bar faded into the background. The laughter, the glasses clinking, it all felt so distant. I thought about the bills, the shared dreams, and the moments we had built together. All of it felt like a lie. I turned to leave, but before I could, I heard her say Jason's name in a way that made my blood boil. I went home and sat in silence, replaying the scene in my head. I had to confront her, but how? Part of me wanted to scream in rage, while another part just felt hollow. The betrayal was fresh, and I was scared of what came next. How do you confront the person you love when they've shattered your trust? That night, I didn't sleep a wink. I knew I had to come up with a plan to confront her, but I was also overwhelmed with a sense of dread. My heart ached, and I felt completely lost. The next day dragged on like molasses. I went through the motions at work, but my mind was a whirlpool of anger, pain, and confusion. Every time I tried to focus on my tasks, images of Jennifer and Jason flooded my thoughts. I couldn't understand how it had come to this. Was I really so blind to the signs? I felt like a fool, and the weight of betrayal hung over me like a storm cloud. When I finally got home that evening, the tension in the air was palpable. Jennifer was already there, blissfully unaware of the emotional storm brewing inside me. She greeted me with a warm smile that made my stomach churn. I couldn't look her in the eye, so I busied myself in the kitchen, pretending to make dinner. As I chopped vegetables, I felt the simmering rage inside me grow hotter. I needed to confront her, but I wanted to do it in a way that would make my point clear without losing my composure completely. After all, I had seen her true colors. I wasn't about to let her manipulate me with tears or excuses. I waited until we sat down to eat. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the clinking of silverware. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to come. "So how was your night out with Jason?" I asked, keeping my voice steady though my heart raced. Her fork froze midair and her eyes widened in surprise. "What do you mean?" she stammered. The look on her face told me everything. I was right. She wasn't as good at hiding things as she thought. "I saw you, Jen. I saw you at the bar with him. You were all over each other," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts. "How could you do this to me?" Her initial shock quickly morphed into defensiveness. "You're being ridiculous, Tom. It was just a friendly conversation. You really can't trust me at all, can you?" She tossed her hair back, a gesture I recognized too well. She was preparing for battle. "Friendly conversation," I shot back, unable to contain my anger. "It looked a lot more than friendly to me. You were laughing and touching him. Do you think I'm that stupid?" She rolled her eyes and leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "You always jump to conclusions. You're so paranoid. I can't even have friends anymore. Because you can't handle it." The sarcasm dripped from her voice as she continued to deflect. "I'm paranoid. You're cheating on me and you think I'm the one with the problem." I felt a surge of indignation. "You need to own up to what you've done." The room fell silent, the air thick with the weight of our confrontation. I could see the gears turning in her mind as she tried to construct a defense. "Okay, fine, maybe I was flirting a little, but it didn't mean anything. We were just having fun." "Fun? You call cheating fun?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The callousness of her excuses was infuriating. "You think this is a game, Jen? You've betrayed me and you're minimizing it like it's nothing." A flicker of guilt crossed her face, but it was quickly replaced by anger. "You don't get to control how I live my life. If I want to have fun, I will. You've become so boring and uptight. Maybe this is your fault too." I felt like I had been slapped. The audacity, she was shifting the blame onto me, as if my commitment to our life together was the reason for her infidelity. "I can't believe you're blaming me for this. I've been nothing but supportive of you, and this is how you repay me." Her expression hardened. "Maybe you should have cared more about our relationship instead of focusing on your ridiculous projects and work all the time." The sting of her words pierced deeper than I wanted to admit. It was true I had been busy with work, but I never thought it would give her an excuse to cheat. "So you thought sleeping with another guy was the solution? What happened to talking things through?" She rolled her eyes again, her dismissal of my feelings cutting deeper than any knife. "You wouldn't listen anyway. This is what happens when you neglect your wife." An overwhelming sense of betrayal washed over me. It was like I was living a nightmare and I had to wake up from it. But there was no waking up. This was my reality. I sat there, simmering in anger, hurt, and betrayal, trying to process everything she had just said. After what felt like an eternity of silence, I stood up from the table. "I need some time to think," I said, my voice low but firm. "You can figure out what you want to do next, but I don't think I can just sit here and pretend this didn't happen." She didn't respond. She simply stared at me, and the silence between us felt suffocating. I walked out of the kitchen and into the living room, trying to catch my breath. The emotional roller coaster had left me reeling, and I felt as if the ground had been pulled from under me. I spent the night packing the apartment, my mind racing. I had so many thoughts, but one stood out. I needed to take control of my life again. This betrayal was a wake-up call, and I refused to be the victim in my own story. I didn't know what my next steps would be, but I felt a growing determination to reclaim my dignity and move forward. The days that followed the confrontation turned into a blur of emotions and sleepless nights. I went to work, but my mind was elsewhere, spinning with thoughts of betrayal and anger. Jennifer and I hardly spoke. The silence in our apartment was deafening, a constant reminder of the rift in our relationship. I felt like a stranger in my own home. I was angry at her, but I was also mad at myself. How could I have let it come to this? I replayed our conversations in my head, scrutinizing every moment for signs I had missed. I realized I had been so wrapped up in my own life, my own struggles, that I had failed to notice she was slipping away. but no amount of self-blame could change what had happened. I needed to focus on the future. One night, as I sat alone in the living room, I decided to take action. I couldn't just wallow in misery or wait for Jennifer to make the next move. I needed a plan, a way to regain control over my life and find some semblance of happiness again. So, I started mapping out my options. I remembered a friend who had gone through a similar situation. He had taken a trip to clear his mind and came back with a fresh perspective on his life. That's when it hit me, I should do the same. I could take a short getaway somewhere to relax and rethink everything. But it wasn't just about escaping. I wanted to explore how I could upgrade my lifestyle. If Jennifer was going to throw away our marriage, I needed to find a way to live my life on my own terms. I spent the next few days researching places to visit. I needed somewhere that would allow me to indulge without the weight of my current situation dragging me down. I found a beautiful resort in Palm Springs that offered spa treatments, golf, and a fantastic food scene. It was a far cry from our typical frugal dining habits. I booked a week-long stay, feeling a sense of excitement that had been missing for far too long. The day before I was set to leave, Jennifer and I had another confrontation. She had been trying to talk to me, but I was still raw from the betrayal. I was packing my suitcase when she entered the bedroom. "Where are you going?" she asked, the edge in her voice barely concealed. "I'm taking a trip." "I need some time away from all this," I replied, keeping my tone flat and neutral. "Why? You can't just run away." "From your problems, Tom," she snapped. "We need to talk about this." "Talk? What's there to talk about? You've made your choices clear, and I'm not going to sit around waiting for you to decide if you want me in your life or not." I felt a surge of anger again, but I didn't want to lose my composure. "You're being dramatic," she said, rolling her eyes. "You're just running away instead of dealing with this like a grown-up." I took a deep breath. Maybe I'm running towards something better. "You've made it clear where your priorities lie, and I'm done being the backup plan." Her expression morphed into one of anger, but I could also see a flicker of fear. Did she really think I wouldn't stand up for myself? "You're making a huge mistake, Tom. You'll regret this." With that, I picked up my suitcase and walked out the door. I was done being manipulated. I didn't need her approval or her understanding. I needed to reclaim my life. The drive to Palm Springs was exhilarating, a mix of anticipation and freedom. The open road stretched before me, and for the first time in weeks I felt a semblance of hope. I arrived at the resort and was immediately struck by the stunning surroundings, the palm trees, the mountains in the distance, the warmth of the sun on my skin. I checked in and made my way to my room, which was more luxurious than I could have imagined. After settling in, I decided to explore the resort. The vibe was alive with laughter and joy, a stark contrast to the heaviness I had experienced at home. I wandered through the gardens, admired the pool, and soaked in the atmosphere. I felt like I was starting to breathe again. The first night, I dined at a five-star restaurant within the resort. As I savored each bite, I found myself smiling for the first time in days. The food was exquisite, the ambience perfect, and I realized how much I had deprived myself of pleasure while trying to please Jennifer. I had spent so much time catering to our shared life that I had forgotten how to enjoy life on my own. As the days went by, I indulged in spa treatments, golf, and the local cuisine. I met some interesting people, including a group of guys who were on a golf trip. We hit it off immediately, and I found myself laughing and sharing stories, something I hadn't done in what felt like ages. The camaraderie was refreshing, and it reminded me that life was about more than just one person. I also took time to reflect on my relationship with Jennifer. I felt a mix of anger and relief as I processed what had happened. I had given my heart and soul to someone who had chosen to betray me, but I was starting to understand that I deserved better. I didn't want to simply go back to the way things were. I wanted to embrace a new chapter in my life, regardless of whether that included her or not. The night before I was set to return home, I stood on the balcony of my room, gazing out at the stars. The warmth from the sun-filled days lingered in the air, and for a moment I felt a sense of closure. I was ready to return, not as a victim, but as a man who had reclaimed his identity, Whatever happened next, I knew I would face it head on. The flight back home felt surreal. I had spent a week rediscovering myself, and the shift in my perspective was monumental. As the plane touched down in Chicago, I felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. I was excited to return, but I knew I had to face Jennifer and the reality of our situation head on. When I walked through the door to our apartment, I braced myself for whatever awaited me. The silence was stark, echoing the emptiness I felt in my heart. I dropped my bags by the entrance and called out, "Jennifer." She emerged from the living room, her expression unreadable. "You're back," she said flatly, crossing her arms. "Yeah, I am," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I had a good time." "Good for you," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm. "I hope you enjoyed yourself while I've been here wondering what the hell you were doing." I took a deep breath, ready to stand my ground. "I want to clear my head, Jennifer." I needed space to think about everything. Her eyes narrowed, and I could see the defensiveness creeping back in. "And what did you decide? Are you going to keep running away from your problems?" I shook my head. "No, I'm not running away. I'm choosing to take control of my life. I realized I can't keep living in a situation where I'm not respected or valued." She scoffed. "So you think you can just waltz back in here and demand respect after taking off like that? You don't get to just dismiss everything we had because you needed a vacation." I felt my anger rising again. "You're the one who dismissed what we had when you decided to cheat on me, Jennifer. I'm done pretending that everything is fine when it clearly is." We stood there, both of us breathing heavily, the tension palpable. I could see the anger and frustration flickering in her eyes, but it didn't scare me anymore. I was done being afraid of her reactions. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to sleep with someone else." I continued, my voice steady. "I'm not asking for a perfect marriage, but I deserve honesty and loyalty. And clearly I didn't get that from you. Don't you dare act like you're the victim." Here, she shot back, her voice rising. "You were always so absorbed in your work that you didn't even notice me. I felt lonely and I went looking for attention. Is that so terrible?" "Yes, it is terrible. You don't solve your problems by betraying your partner," I said, frustration spilling over. "I've been busy, but I didn't think you'd go to that extreme. I thought we could work through our issues together." She lowered her gaze, the fight slowly leaving her. "Maybe I was wrong," she muttered. I could see a flicker of regret in her eyes, but I wasn't going to let her off the hook with that alone. "Maybe. You don't get to minimize this, Jen. You chose to cheat and now we have to deal with the consequences," I said, my tone firm. "I can't forget what you did." The weight of the conversation hung heavily in the air. I knew I had to make a decision and I had to do it soon. "I've thought a lot about our future," I continued, my voice softer now. "I need to know if you're willing to make changes and fight for our relationship, or if you think this is just an oops moment that we can brush under the rug." "I don't want to lose you, Tom," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I'll do whatever it takes, I just need time to figure things out." I shook my head. "I don't think time is enough. We can't just go back to the way things were. If we're going to rebuild trust, it's going to take real effort from you. I need to see that you're committed to making this right." Jennifer nodded, her expression shifting from defiance to vulnerability. "I'll try, I promise. I know I messed up. I've been a terrible wife and I don't want to lose what we have." Her tears brought a mix of emotions bubbling to the surface. It was hard to see her broken, but I knew I couldn't let sympathy sway me. "Trying isn't good enough if it's just lip service," I said, keeping my emotions in check. "You need to be consistent. I want us to go to couples therapy and I need you to cut all ties with Jason. No more excuses." "Okay. I can do that," she said, her cheeks wet with tears. "I'll prove to you that I can change." I took a step back, creating some space. "This isn't just about saying the right things, it's about actions. I need to see real changes, not just promises." The reality of our situation sunk in deeper. I felt a mix of hope and skepticism. Trust was not something easily rebuilt. It was fragile and could shatter again if I wasn't careful. That night we talked long into the early hours, mapping out our next steps. It was a tough conversation filled with difficult truths, but I felt a hint of hope, the first ember flickering in the darkness. Whatever happened next, I was determined to keep my focus on what was best for me. regardless of whether that included rebuilding my life with Jennifer or moving on completely. As the days passed, I became vigilant, observing her behavior closely. She was genuinely trying to change, but I knew that trust would take time. I held my cards close to my chest, knowing that while I wanted to believe in the possibility of our relationship, I had to protect myself. First, I began to focus on my own needs as well, picking up hobbies I had neglected, reconnecting with friends, and even hitting the gym. I needed to remind myself that I was worthy of love and happiness, regardless of whether it came from Jennifer or someone else. The road ahead was uncertain, but I felt a new strength rising within me. I was done being the passive partner in this relationship. I was ready to take control of my life and define what happiness meant to me, and I would do it on my own terms. As the weeks turned into a month, I began to notice subtle changes in Jennifer's behavior. She genuinely seemed to be trying. She was more present, actively participating in our conversations, and even making an effort to plan date nights. Yet, those moments were often tinged with an underlying tension. Trust was a fragile thing, and I wasn't ready to fully embrace the idea that everything was back to normal. We started attending couples therapy, which I thought would be a good step toward rebuilding our relationship. The therapist, a woman named Dr. Harris, was wise and insightful. She helped us navigate the murky waters of our feelings, encouraging open dialogue about our needs and expectations. I appreciated her guidance, but sitting across from Jennifer in those sessions was both comforting and painful. It reminded me of everything we had been through. One specific session stood out. Dr. Harris asked us to share our feelings about the affair. It was a moment of raw honesty, one that felt like a turning point. "Tom, what do you feel when you think about what happened?" she prompted. I took a deep breath. "I feel hurt, betrayed, and angry. I can't help but question everything. I thought we had a solid foundation, and then it felt like everything crumbled overnight." My voice cracked as I spoke, the pain still too fresh. "It's hard for me to trust you again, and it's a constant battle in my mind." Jennifer nodded, her expression remorseful. "I understand that. I can't change the past, and I regret what I did every single day. I was searching for something I thought I was missing, and I was wrong. I never wanted to hurt you." Her eyes filled with tears, and I could see the sincerity in her words. Dr. Harris gently encouraged her to elaborate, and Jennifer opened up about her feelings of loneliness. She admitted that she had often felt neglected and unappreciated, which had driven her to seek validation elsewhere. "It was stupid and impulsive," she said, wiping tears from her cheeks. "I never wanted to lose you, but I didn't know how to express my needs." Listening to her, I felt a mixture of compassion and skepticism. I wanted to believe her, but the scars were still fresh, and I wasn't sure if I could fully embrace her vulnerability. "I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't excuse what you did," I told her. "I wish we could have talked about it instead of resorting to infidelity." After several sessions, I noticed a slight shift in our dynamic. Jennifer seemed more engaged in our relationship, making an effort to show her appreciation through small gestures, cooking my favorite meals, surprising me with movie nights, and even planning a weekend trip for just the two of us. It was nice, but I remained guarded. I wanted to trust her, but part of me was still bruised and hesitant. One evening, we were having dinner at home when Jennifer asked, "How do you feel about us now?" Her eyes searched mine, looking for any sign of hope. I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "I think we're on the right track, but I still have my doubts. I want to believe in what we're building, but trust doesn't come overnight." She nodded, a flicker of understanding crossing her face. "I know it's going to take time. I'm willing to put in the work. I just don't want to lose you, Tom. I love you." It was a bittersweet moment. I wanted to love her back with the same fervor, but the specter of her betrayal loomed large. "I love you too, but it's hard for me to forget what happened," I replied, my voice steady but tinged with sadness. Then came the moment that sent my world spinning again. One evening, I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone when a notification popped up. It was an Instagram message from Jason, one I had seen before but had dismissed. This time, however, I hesitated. My heart raced as I opened it. "Hey man, just wanted to say I hope you and Jen are doing well. No hard feelings about what happened. Just know I'm here if you ever want to talk. Take care." I felt the blood rush to my face as anger ignited in my chest. Why was he reaching out? I quickly snapped a screenshot before my emotions could spiral out of control. I stormed into the kitchen where Jennifer was washing dishes. "What is this?" I demanded, holding up my phone for her to see. Her eyes widened as she read the message. "Tom, no, don't you dare try to explain." I interrupted. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. You say you want to rebuild trust, yet you're still in contact with him." "Wait a minute, I didn't reach out to him," she protested, her voice rising. "He must have sent that randomly. I haven't talked to him since everything happened." "Then why is he messaging you? Why is he still in your life?" I could feel my heart racing, the anger boiling over. "This isn't okay, Jennifer." She set the dish down, her face pale. "I swear I haven't spoken to him. I've been focused on us." "Then you need to make it clear to him that you're not interested," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. "You have to cut all ties. This is not just a little misunderstanding, it's a big deal." "I will, I promise," she exclaimed, her eyes pleading. "I didn't think he would reach out like that. I'll block him. You have to trust me. I'm trying." "Trying isn't enough right now," I replied, my tone firm. "I need results. I need to know that you're committed to making this work with me and not with him." The tension in the room was thick as we stared at each other, the weight of our past and present colliding in a way that felt unbearable. I knew I was pushing her, but I also knew I had to protect what little trust we had left. "Look, I want us to work, but you need to understand that you can't keep him in your life while I'm trying to rebuild mine," I said, my voice softer this time. "It's not just about what you want, it's about what we need." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I'll do it, I swear. I don't want to lose you, Tom. I'll block him right now." As she pulled out her phone, I felt a glimmer of hope mixed with uncertainty. Maybe she was serious about this. Maybe we could find our way back to each other, but the road ahead was still fraught with challenges, and I knew I had to remain vigilant. "Okay," I said, my tone cautious. "Let's take it one day at a time." That night I lay awake, reflecting on everything that had happened. The confrontation with Jason had rattled me, but it also ignited a fierce determination to rebuild my life. I couldn't let the past define me or our future. I was ready to fight for what I wanted, but I would do it on my own terms. Whatever that meant for me and Jennifer, I was prepared to face it head-on. As the days turned into weeks, I focused on the progress Jennifer and I were making, but I also remained cautious. I had seen glimpses of her commitment to change, but I knew I couldn't let my guard down completely. Trust is something that has to be built back brick by brick, and while Jennifer was making efforts, I was still feeling the tremors of the earthquake that had shaken the foundation of our relationship. We continued attending therapy, and with Dr. Harris's guidance, we worked through the painful aspects of our history. Jennifer openly expressed her desire to reconnect, explaining her loneliness and how she had sought validation from someone else. It was heartbreaking to hear, but I appreciated her honesty. One night after a particularly intense therapy session, we returned home and I could feel a certain warmth in the air. We settled on the couch, the evening light streaming through the window, casting a soft glow around us. I turned to her, feeling an urge to connect. "I know we've been through a lot, but I want to know what you envision for us moving forward," I said, hopping to strike a positive note. She smiled, a genuine expression that pierced through the anxiety I had been feeling. "I want to rebuild what we had, but stronger. I want us to communicate better and prioritize each other. I want to go to couples retreats, do activities together, and really invest in our relationship. I want to prove to you that I can be the partner you deserve." Her words resonated with me. I had always loved her enthusiasm for life, and hearing her talk about our future lifted some of the weight off my shoulders. "I would like that," I admitted, allowing myself to feel a glimmer of hope. "But we also have to take things slow. Rebuilding trust takes time, and I need to see consistent effort from you." "I understand," she replied, sincerity washing over her face. "I'll do my best, Tom. I don't want to lose you again." After that conversation, I noticed a shift. Jennifer was more engaged in the little things. She remembered my favorite coffee order, made time for more intimate conversations, and even threw surprise date nights to remind me of the things we once cherished. It felt refreshing, like we were rediscovering each other. After a few months of hard work, I could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. The fog of betrayal was slowly lifting, and I felt more confident in our relationship. We had started building a new foundation, and it felt solid. Then came a pivotal moment, our anniversary. It was a time I had dreaded earlier in the year, fearing it would be a painful reminder of what had happened. But instead of focusing on the past, Jennifer planned a beautiful evening, complete with dinner at the restaurant where we had our first date. As we sat across from each other, the ambience was filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses, a stark contrast to the heaviness we had endured. I looked at her, she radiated happiness, and I found myself enjoying her company again. "This is nice," I said, smiling at her. "It is," she replied, her eyes sparkling. "I'm really grateful for this chance to be with you again. I know I messed up, but I want to make it right." In that moment, I realized that I had finally begun to let my guard down. I wasn't entirely healed, but I was willing to embrace the journey ahead. "I appreciate everything you're doing, Jen. It means a lot to me." As the night went on, we reminisced about our favorite memories together, and I could see the spark of our connection reigniting. The laughter came naturally, something I hadn't felt in a long time. With each shared anecdote, buried pain began to dissolve, replaced with hope for our future. After dinner, we took a walk along the river. The city lights shimmered on the water's surface, creating a magical backdrop for our conversation. Jennifer glanced over at me, her expression softening. "I want you to know that I've cut all ties with Jason. I've blocked him and made it clear that I'm committed to us." I felt a surge of relief wash over me. "I'm glad to hear that. I want to trust you, and knowing you've taken that step helps." As we continued our walk, I could feel the warmth between us growing stronger. I knew that we still had a long way to go, but for the first time in a while, I felt optimistic about what lay ahead. Perhaps we had a chance after all. Months passed, and while we continued to work on our relationship in therapy, things felt different. I started to see Jennifer not just as the person who had hurt me, but as someone who was genuinely committed to rebuilding our lives together. We explored new hobbies, traveled to places we had never been, and laughed more than we had in years. One evening, as we were preparing dinner together, I looked over at her. "You know, I think we're going to be okay," I said, smiling. She paused, looking back at me with a bright smile. "I believe that too, Tom, I really do. Thank you for giving us this chance." It was then that I realized how far we had come, how I had transformed from feeling lost and betrayed to hopeful and reconnected. I had taken control of my life, and now I felt empowered in my relationship. I learned that while we can't erase our past, we can choose how to move forward. In doing so, I discovered that life could still hold moments of joy and happiness, even after the deepest wounds. As I wrapped my arms around her, I felt gratitude for this second chance. I had emerged stronger, more self-assured, and ready for whatever came next. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I was prepared to face them with Jennifer by my side, knowing that our relationship, while tested, had the potential to flourish anew.